Hello, welcome to another diversion, this time into modding with my friend IOM3D. For those of you who don't know, he is a modder who likes to create unique mechanics that cause dramas between different players.
Thank you for the introduction, Sonic. I enjoy making mods with special mechanics that are just as fun to watch as they are to play. So even if I'm not good at the game, I can still have just as much fun watching as the players have playing. Today I'm going to walk through the basics of my Great War scenario. This is part of my historically accurate civilizations overhaul for Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition.
And you can find links to his other mods and projects in the description, but for right now, I'll get out of the way and let him take it from here.
Thank you, Sonic. The scenario covers the Great War starting when the Ottomans joined in 1914. I tried to make the scenario as accurate as possible with the limitations of the software. So the Western Front is more of a stalemate, with it hard for either side to push back or forth. The Eastern Front has a large area where militaries can move vast distances very fast. It's a lot more open and mobile. The scenario has a focus on the aspect of attrition for the war. So you have to outlast the other side. And there's a large trade focus for the late game. Sadly, as I mentioned before, there is a player cap, so I had to merge certain factions together so I could actually fill up the whole map. So all the neutral countries have been merged into one faction. And also certain factions have been removed completely because I didn't have enough players and it would make it unbalanced with the amount of players I had. This scenario is a regicide scenario, which means every player has a king and a queen. When both die, the player will be defeated. Just like in a game of chess, when the king is captured, the person loses the game. This is also a diplomacy game, so you can actually have diplomatic alliances, but all of it has been removed except for the neutral factions, which I will go over later. The replay you're about to see is an all AI versus AI match, with minor help from me directing the French AI to prioritize some of the special mechanics, so you can actually see them. Every civilization is custom, so they have different bonuses that represent different playstyles. The Republic of France is defensive bonuses with focus on tanks and tunnelers, or which are equivalent to the petard and the Hussite wagon. All the medieval units have equivalent modern units, and I've changed some of the stats to make them more equivalent. And the Germans are focused on gunpowder bonuses, moving very, very powerful gunpowder units, quality infantry, and a minor focus on U-boats. Not a lot of economic bonuses, but they have quite a few team bonuses to kind of help out their teammates because they kind of were helping out all the other central powers. The British are naval focused, with focuses on trade as well. They have lots of bonuses for cannon galleons, which are the equivalent for the battleship. Galleons are equivalent for the cruisers, and fireships have been eliminated from the ability for every civilization to make them. Older texts that do not fit the time period I have removed as an option from these civilizations. The Italians are a naval civilization with focus on coastal economic bonuses, but battleships and their unique unit, which is effectively a fortification unit for like World War I trenches and stuff, since it can build towers and it's a military unit. The Austrians are slow and powerful, have slow and powerful units, so they have powerful gunpowder units with high attack, but they're very slow. The cavalry is more outdated, more akin to an older, outdated army, like it was historically. Let's see what's going to be next. The Russians have a wider unit roster and control a lot of territory. They have a little bit of defensive buildings. They produce infantry and everything really, really fast. They have a larger population space with bonuses to deal with, make them have a better population. You'll see why they're not super overpowered later on when I get to the Russian Revolution mechanic. But they have a little bit more outdated units. The neutral countries are the Kingdom of Sweden. They kind of just have a more Napoleonic era army, so that's why I added them as the neutral countries, not some other faction. So I didn't have to create a custom new civilization for them. They're always played by the AI. They are never played by a human player. The Ottomans are have a little bit of gunpowder units bonuses to show that they're being helped out by the Germans and they're getting a little bit better pretty fast. But a lot of their units are still older cavalry archers, light cavalry. They have a few minor trade bonuses, but they're not supposed to be super powerful for this map like they were historically. Um, those are the Russian Revolution mechanics to see if they've triggered or not. Factories. Every civilization has a monastery which has been relabeled a factory in their capital. You put relics in there, you unlock bonuses. 4 relics, you get planes that will spawn in your castles, in your forts/forts. 8, your hand cannoneers, which are riflemen, become submachine gunners. 10, you get tanks or the Hussite wagons spawn like the aircraft. 12, the tanks get different stats for each civilization to kind of distinguish them. Every civilization gets a different amount of each spawning unit from the factories. The Russian Revolution mechanic is effectively since the Germans financed the Bolsheviks and the fight against the Russians, try and get them out of the war. I made it so periodically when the Russian Revolution mechanic happens, the Russian military units will switch to the German player's side. And you can try and snipe the king when that happens since they're all around the king's area. And that's how the Russians don't get super overpowered. They can produce a lot of units, but they also revolt against yourself. In order for Russian revolution to end, the Russians have to get 12 relics into their factory to fully industrialize and become powerful enough to put down the revolts. If you pass your military units through the neutral countries, they will join your opponent's side. And that can be a big deal, especially if they've been neutral most of the game, because they bank up a lot of resources. And when towards the end of the game, everyone's struggling with resource amounts because it's the war of attrition, and so they can finance whoever they join, and it makes a huge difference. So you don't want to violate the neutral country's neutrality by putting your army through them or by enemying them in the diplomacy. You can see they start out as neutral. They do not become enemied to any player in this replay, and that's deliberate because otherwise I would lose when I was trying to help the French. Otherwise, it's very hard for either side to win if they join your enemies. But I'll probably make another replay showing the German side or the Central Powers because the playstyle is kind of different based on the terrain and the scenario and what you're working with. There's different objectives depending on your starting location and your starting resources and everything else. So I think that is it for now. I've gone over all the major mechanics. Time for the video.
So as you will see, I'm going to display the map in different areas, starting with France, since I am playing as France. Then I'm going to move down to the Spain area, in the area bordering Spain and France. There's the trenches. That is the little area that Britain controls down south of Spain. I'm displaying the trade route, or some of the trade routes, some of the over North Africa. Those become important late game. This is Germany. You can see there's a lot of fighting starts off immediately as soon as the game starts. There is a naval battle going on between Britain and the Germans. There was only one naval battle historically, and both sides basically didn't want to lose any of their fleets, so they then packed them up and just kind of stalemated, kept them in their ports, or at least the Germans and the British just never fought them again. So to kind of simulate that, I had the Germans and the British fight their naval battle up front, and I made the naval vessels very expensive to replace. So it takes a long time for either side to replace their navy, which makes it more of a stalemate type situation, at least on the sea. Although Britain has cheaper navy, so it makes it a little bit easier for them to regain it. Simulate that they kind of blockaded the port. So I'm going down here, which shows trade in the game. How trade works in Age of Empires is the longer the trade route, the more gold you get from the trade. And so the trade route for them goes from just below where Egypt is, through the Panama Canal, all the way around Spain, up to Britain, which is one of the longest trade routes in the game, which means they get a lot of gold, but only if they can protect their naval trade route, which is a long distance to get there. I think Britain, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think they also get some food from trade as well as gold. So that also makes trade a lot more important for them than a lot of other civilizations. Since they have an island, they can't really use as much resources on the island, so protecting the trade route is very important long term. Russia, as I'm now showing over there, I'm selecting all those units to show you that they're Russian units currently. Periodically, when the Russian Revolution starts, the Russian units will transfer to the German side. And as the Russian Revolution intensifies, they will increase the amount of area that units will transfer to the German side. And eventually, it will just be overwhelming in terms of amount of troops. It will keep repeating itself until the Russians industrialize completely or put 12 relics into their factories, which symbolizes them having enough industrial might to put down their revolts, which they were unsuccessful doing historically. Right now, I'm looking for the Russian Revolution to see when it will begin, so I can just show you when all those units change sides. I do not have a timer. It will happen pretty randomly. The first two revolts, it will let you know when they happen. The third one, it will just start repeating from there until you get the 12 relics into the factory. The Germans cannot really fight a two-front war very easily and win it. So to show that when the Russian troops switch to the German side, you can use that to snipe the king and queen, because if you snipe the king and queen, the king and queen will kill the Russian player. Every player has the king and queen, and when they die, they're dead. So you can't necessarily beat them in an actual long fight, but you can beat them in a quick movement to snipe the king and queen, like with a blitzkrieg later on in World War II. Let's see what else. I did combine the Russian faction with a lot of the allied Baltic nations, just because I only allowed to use 8 players, and so all the Baltic nations were protected under Russia, or the Tsars had protection rights over them. I forget the exact treaty or whatever that was signed over that. But that's why I gave them to the Russian faction, not like Britain or someone else. The neutral countries, I don't think the mechanic is actually triggered in this game. That's deliberate because they gather resources over the course of the long game, and they will basically finance whichever side they join later on, which is a big deal because resources become a very big deal later on in the game when they become scarce. It is a war of attrition. I simulated that pretty well for this scenario. Oh. So I think I'm now going over the factories locations. Yep, there's the British factory, German factory. I'm showing how many relics are in it. When you get a certain amount of relics in each factory, they then start producing units, and you get bonuses. So your hand cannoneers will go from riflemen to machine guns in terms of they shoot faster. This version doesn't have the renamed units and buildings, but in the most recent update, I renamed all of the buildings and units to the equivalent modern era units and buildings. They don't have different skins, so they don't look like modern units or buildings, but they do have they have been renamed, so you know what I'm referring to. So the castles, I believe, are bunkers. Markets are train stations for cargo trains, and then I think the trade ships are cargo freighters or something like that. I forget the exact name. I did some research on what I should name each thing. Yeah, I also made a few other adjustments in the most recent patch, but I don't think I've added them, at least not for this video. This was recorded previous to that. Oh yeah, neutral factions. How do you get them to enemy you? So in the diplomacy menu, you cannot change your diplomatic relations with any of the Central Powers, or I think it's Entente powers. They cannot change their alliances with the other members of the alliances. But what they can change the diplomatic relations with is the neutral countries. Either one can enemy them if they want. But if they do that, the neutral powers will also enemy all their whole team or faction. So if the Central Powers enemy the neutral countries will enemy all the Central Powers, and they will join the Entente. Versus true if the Entente enemies them first. Whoever enemies them first is the one side that they join, and they do not switch sides after that. The other way the neutral countries can join one side or the other is if you move a certain amount of military units into their territory, they will automatically join the other side. So you do not want to violate their neutrality. So to kind of demonstrate this, the trenches go all the way to Switzerland. The reason they did not flank them or go through Switzerland is, first of all, the mountains, it's kind of hard to pass. They were neutral, and if you go through the neutral countries, all of a sudden the whole neutral countries will declare war on whoever side does it first. So you do not want to invade Switzerland, even though you can technically flank France or Germany in a game. The neutral countries is the only permanent AI only faction. All the other factions can be AI or they can be human players. I did give all the civilizations have their own custom bonuses and units. I'm probably going to change some of the bonuses and units at some point. I update those pretty frequently for balancing issues. Let me see. And I'm probably going to add more factions because the mod that gives the civilizations that I created is separate than the actual scenario. The scenario is World War One or the Great War mod. But the civilizations don't actually come with the Great War mod. You have to install Nations of Total War mods, which is UI and the regular base mod. And that will install custom civilizations, and then you can add the scenario on top of that. The reason I started making mods is I originally wanted to make my own custom civilizations. And then I made a whole bunch of custom civilizations. I wanted to test them on historical maps to see how they work. And then I made the scenarios to complement the civilizations. I originally started off with just ancient world to medieval Renaissance era civilizations. And that was in my historical civilizations mod. I then ran out of room because you have the maximum amount of civilizations you can have in one mod. So I then created this separate mod and broke off the World War One and World War II era civilizations into their own separate mod as part of Nations of Total War. Try and make space to add more civilizations to the ancient world, and then I'd have a whole separate mod for the modern era or more modern era. The I'm still running out of room, and I'm trying to figure out what civilizations to replace currently. Let's see. Russian Revolution has not yet begun, but I think it will begin shortly. Let's see. I forget if I do view lock at some point, but on view lock, if you're playing as German faction, all of a sudden it'll be very obvious. Yep, there the Russian units just changed. Yeah. So you see view lock, you can see German units. The Russian units transferred to the German side, and the king and queen is in that castle right there. So if they have a whole bunch of sieger units, you can actually snipe it with their own units to try and kill them because you can't beat them in a long war. I think this isn't really demonstrated until the very end of the match, and I don't really demonstrate this at all because of the factions I picked and how the game went. But when factions die, territory will be exchanged along historical lines, at least if the Entente wins. And if the Central Powers wins, then different things will happen. I'm still messing around with what will happen at that point. I just showed you the Russian Revolution begins. Just got checked. Let's see. What was I saying? Oh yes, relations. So such as if Russia loses to Germany, they will give up all the territory. I think is it Brest-Litovsk? I'm not quite sure. But there's a treaty where they take basically a huge amount of Russian territory. And they will, when the Russians die, they'll get renamed the Soviet Union when they're defeated. And they will lose a huge amount of territory. Now, if the Germans lose after that, they will then lose all that territory when they're defeated. And part of it will go to the neutral countries and will become part of Poland and all that stuff. Austria-Hungary, when they die, part of their territory becomes part of the neutral countries. I think they keep the part that's modern day Austria and all the other sections that get splintered off when the Austrian-Hungarian Empire collapses go to either neutral countries or the other powers who wanted their territory. I don't remember all of the details off the top of my head. Ottomans become the Turkish Republic when they're defeated. I think France still stays France. British still stays British. If the British or the French lose or the Italians lose, they have all these colonies in North Africa. Those colonies will be transferred to the Ottomans' territory. So they will reclaim Egypt from the British. They will reclaim, I think it's Libya from Italy, or the Kingdom of Italy, and they will reclaim Moroccan area from France if those factions are defeated. Germany, I believe, gains part of France if they win. I don't remember off the top of my head. They are gaining parts of Russia. I think they gain Malta or some of the areas in the Mediterranean that were strategic that the British used. I don't remember off the top of my head. Um, it's been a while, and I'd have to go back and check it. Uh, let's see. Uh, Sonic, is there anything you want to
Yeah.
discuss other than that? Because I think that's all the major details for this mod, other than just watching it go.
No, yeah. No, I'm again, it's yours, and I haven't played the main game.
Oh, I'm not skilled at the main game either, which is why I did AI versus AI, all AI versus AI. Because you
Yeah.
get an even like skill set or level for every player, to see how it would work. And you also get to see like just how it runs. And if you have special mechanics and the AI won't prioritize them, you can actually manually take control of certain units to make them prioritize certain objectives first. So, like in this game, I'm playing as France, but really I'm not playing as France. The AI is playing as France.
Mm.
And I'm just directing some French units to go after the relics, which will help be put in the factory to let them upgrade the units and unlock special technologies.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I put extreme AI for all of them just so I can see it like run really fast. It also makes it very chaotic. Um,
Well, wait,
when you're
it
watching.
runs very fast, and this is
Oh, yeah. It runs and starts very fast. The problem I have, at least when I was recording this, is my graphics card were messed up, and so it looks a lot slower and glitchy than it actually is.
so how
Normally it
long
runs.
did it actually take?
So currently, the actual game was about an hour, 2 or 3. The problem is, you actually have to kill the king or queen, and if you're trying to snipe them, how you would is in a real game with other players, it's a lot harder to do when you're playing with the AI because the AI will take control of the units you're trying to take control of, and you're having to fight over what units doing what. So if you want to attack with your units in one area, the AI wants to attack something else. You're effectively fighting for control of what's going to be attacked first, and the AI and then it just moves back and forth, and then it's just killed very easily. Um, so in that way, it's very hard to make the game go faster, especially in the way I test it. But it can go extremely fast depending on the match and how quickly you kill the king or queen.
And also because your computer had all that trouble, right?
Oh yeah, it slowed down the whole thing significantly. You can even see it in the video and the recording. The recording had all the slowdown that I had in the actual game. So you can see like the units are stopping and starting. That's from my graphics card issues that and the drivers that I fixed afterwards. So that will not happen in most games unless you have a bad graphics card or like me, you just didn't realize the drivers were messed up. Oh yeah, this is the funny part. The AI, because that's a small area, they got so many units in that one area that they can't move units through either direction.
Mhm.
Which is kind of funny to watch because the AI doesn't know what to do. And normally, if you're a real player, you delete some of those units to make it less traffic jammed. But the AI hasn't figured that out, so it's kind of just doing there.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
another. I don't know how I feel about everyone calling these things AI. You know what I mean?
Uh, I get exactly what you mean, but I don't know what else you would call them.
Well, they're not. I guess that's true, but I mean, like a computer doesn't really know what 2 plus 2 is. What it essentially does is it got programmed a list for 20 years, and it can just pull up the information
It's cause and
faster.
effect. Cause and effect. So, this cause will cause this effect, and it just runs that cause and effect calculation a whole bunch.
Yeah,
It's actually what computers do.
I know,
This is,
but
it's,
it. Oh
it's
wait,
like
you
how
go.
my dog works. My dog knows like if he's good and calm, he will get treats. He knows if he's that's the cause. The cause is being good and calm. The effect is he gets treats.
Well, a
Um,
computer can't figure that out. We have
yeah,
to.
yeah, but I mean, it's humans doing it is just a more complex version of machines doing it. It's cause and effect and a little bit extra calculations on top of that. It's not very different, but it's
Yeah,
the
if
same
and
basic underlying.
statements.
It's the same basic underlying function.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and oh yeah, one of the major things about this mod, Britain, naval power, completely OP. Um, Especially since this map has what do you call it? Rivers. Normally you cannot do a whole battleship down one of these rivers.
I don't know if
But
those would
because
technically be rivers.
uh, I think it's the Rhine, the Danube, and some of the other rivers through Europe.
All right.
I use those rivers to very good effect for the Viking mod I created. But like this, it basically allows them to put whole battleships down the rivers into Central Europe and attack with navy in the middle of Europe, which is not really supposed to happen. I put some buffs on naval defenses, but never seems to quite work 100% correctly, unless you're focusing stopping the British from doing that. Um, yeah, but that's very very important. I tried eliminating them from doing that, but there's no good solution for fixing that completely. Um, so they can do that effectively whenever they want, as long as you're not stopping them. Uh, One of the things I would also suggest if you're playing this game is if you have a lot of relics and you've already gotten your upgrades, don't keep the extra relics for yourself and put them in other monasteries. Give them to your teammates and have them unlock their technologies as well. Because not every faction gets the same amount of aircraft or tanks. Every faction gets a different number, and each faction has different stats for those units. So, like, I think I went past it. There was a unit on top of the water a few seconds ago where that was supposed to be an aircraft or a fighter. But that aircraft from like Austria Hungary has different stats from Germany or France or Britain. So just because you have some units, if you gave your technologies to someone else who gave them access to it, they might have better units than you do or a lot more of them than you do. So you might want to actually help out your teammates and prioritize who gets the what first. Because it isn't necessarily good for you to prioritize yourself ahead of time, because it might actually make you lose in the long run or lose very fast. Effectively, whoever gains the technologies first wins the game in this match. That's generally how it always works. So technology and upgrading is very, very important for this game in particular. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going showing where the there's some more relics showing where they roughly are. Russia has a huge amount of territory. They have a lot of resources and access to a lot of them. The one major issue Russia has is, I think I'll point this out later. They have a large population, 510, I believe, in terms of population space. It's the largest of any of the factions on the map. The thing that keeps them from getting too overpowered is periodically all their military units will switch to Germany side, and so they'll have like 300 units, and all of a sudden they'll be back to 100. And so that keeps them kind of becoming too overpowered. And effectively, the more powerful they become, the more of a problem it is for them because they'll hurt themselves the more units they make. So which is why you want to prioritize getting the relics in the economy and then using the military. Because it's such a large distance between Germany and Russia, you have a little bit of ways before Germany can actually push all the way there. And I put a lot of towers and defenses and stuff to make it harder to push. So Russia can be very powerful, but only under certain situations or circumstances. And the one thing I'm a little bit disappointed though is I haven't been able to figure out how to make the Russians attack the Ottomans through the Caucasus um, mountains, which is if you look on the map and you look at the red part where the Ottomans are, and where the very bottom east of the map, there's a little area where the Russians and the Ottomans are near each other, and that's where the Caucasus are. And historically, they fought a lot in that area, and Russia did very, very well, but not as well in mainland Europe. In this map, they almost never fight in that area, which I'm disappointed because I've tried incentivizing them to do it a lot, and it never works out. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Uh, in terms of the game, I don't know, but it seems to be I just talk and then another thing comes into your head that you want to say.
Oh yeah, I think I've gone over most of everything.
Yeah, that's
Uh, if you want, I can go over some of the other mods or stuff I'm working on.
no. It's
Um,
all about what you want. I'm fine with us just talking, if you want. If not, this is for you, man.
okay. There goes all the Russian units just switch sides again. So you can see like all the units around the capital all of a sudden switch sides, and all of a sudden Germany has a good sniping force surrounding the Russian king and queen, which are still in that castle. So you could easily snipe them in a real game, and that's really the best way to beat Russia. And if they were to move their king and queen around, first of all, you never know when the Russian Revolution is going to hit. So if you're moving them and they're undefended, they can die pretty easily. The other part to that is the Russian Revolution doesn't just hit one area. It hits large areas. There's specific areas, but they're randomized and they'll hit different areas. So military units in one area will also get hit, and some areas in a far off area will also hit. So if you're trying to move them to the back corner, I wouldn't do that because Russian Revolution mechanic also affects there as well. So I do not like it when people hide in corners with their king and queen. And at least for my, I think it was the Punic War scenario, I actually made it useful for your king to not actually be hidden in a castle or in the middle of nowhere, because you would be able to take over all the other players' units and buildings and stuff, but only if you moved your king to their capital, I believe. Um, so it gives you incentive, and whoever does that gets a huge bonus. To whoever does it first, and whoever does not do it first, everyone else. If you don't want to risk it, you don't have to, but you'll. It will be bad for you in the long run. Um, so it makes the game a little bit more interesting.
Mm.
Let's see.
And sorry if you hear a slight coughing. I'm just getting over something.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm not feeling super well either.
Yo.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, also, I was wondering, like, I'm turning 21 on the 5th. I'm thinking, maybe sometime during that weekend, a bunch of us can go to a bar or something. Cause I mean, I don't expect anyone to be on Tuesday, you know?
oh yeah, sure. I'd be willing to join you. I didn't get to go bar for my 21st birthday because of the lockdowns, but
Uh,
I'd be happy to join you for yours.
Thanks.
It'd give me a makeup 21st birthday alcohol binge at a bar.
Cool. Let's do that. Let's get everyone who missed out. Let's drink.
Yeah. Let's see.
And again, because we're of age and it's a ritual type thing. Don't just drink for no reason.
Yeah. I think a small amount, like with dinner, is fine. Like,
Well, they say
just go.
one glass of red wine a week is very healthy for you.
Mm. Yeah, I generally have a glass of wine with dinner. Just I don't like it just because the alcohol. I'm like I don't understand why people like it for alcohol and how it makes you feel. I'm like it's like soda. If it tastes good, I'll have it. Why taste it for all the other stuff?
Well, it's because if the more you drink, the better it tastes. Uh, after a bit, that's how I know the first time I got buzzed. All of a sudden, all the bitter taste from the alcohol went away, and it was just fruity. And I was like, "Oh, that's right. I haven't eaten anything at all."
Yeah, I've never actually been buzzed.
Yeah, I the easiest way, don't have anything in your stomach when you drink. You even just a couple sips and you're buzzed.
Yeah, I've done that before. I still haven't gotten buzzed. Um,
Well, it also
oh,
depends what you're drinking, man. 'Cause different things have different alcohol content.
yeah, true.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
but
not big on all the hard liquor. I just think it tastes horrible, so I won't even touch it.
I wasn't even hard liquor. Well, I guess not. I don't know. Again, I'd have to read. It was at BJ's Brew House, and yeah, it was just a fruity drink. I remember But alcohol is expensive, man. Like when we were out after let's see, me, Ambrose, Will, no, not Ambrose. Was it Ambrose? I can't remember. I don't think so. I think it was just me, Will, Anna, and Haley. We did an escape room together. You know,
You want to use names or no?
what does it matter? You're the
Okay,
only one on here. They don't
sure.
know these people.
Okay.
They don't even know their voices.
Okay, that's fine then. I just want to double check. Let's see.
Yeah, but afterwards we went to BJ's. Will got one mojito, and it was like $30, I think. And I got I don't know exactly, but I know the alcohol free version. I got like 3 to 4 before it
Oh,
matched the price of his one alcohol drink.
oh, by the way, the Russian revolts that shows the other two got marked off, which means the third one will not periodically hit. Um, uh, and it has now been enabled. I think that one will only appear once it's been enabled. Um,
So
go back.
how periodically though?
Game time, not quite sure. It's relatively long, but not super long. I timed it by accident, and when I tested it, it was almost perfectly timed. So when the Russians get to about 400 units, or when they get to be like about the point where they'll be unstoppable, that's when the Russian Revolution will start happening.
Mm.
So in terms of that, it's roughly timed when they become way too powerful. I'd say in game time, I think it was listed 500 or 750. But I don't know what that means in actual real time.
I don't know either, so that's fair.
I'd say 5 minutes or so, I believe. Maybe I still haven't been able to calculate that.
All right,
Um,
that's
uh,
fine. Well, whenever I think of revolution now, the first thing that pops into my head is that France meme, France during a war, France during the revolution, and France during the war is like a puppy dog, and the other one it's just everything is on fire.
I find it very interesting that everyone focuses on the fact that France like surrendered and all that stuff for like World War II, when I think they still have the best military record of any country that's ever existed
Well, it's
currently.
not. It's not just. It's not just World War II. They have not had the best in terms of how they react, but it could be argued that
I
they
mean, in
did the
terms
right
of battles
thing.
won, they still have the highest number of battles won of any country. Or maybe the top three. I don't remember off the top of my head which
I
was
don't
number one.
think they have the top.
Last time I checked, it was or close to the top. It wasn't necessarily. I'd have to go double check again.
Yeah, we,
It's been
we
a
can
while
check.
since I looked at that.
What countries have won the most battles?
I think it was France is at the top, or close to it. I don't remember off top. Let me double check. Give me a second.
Is it France?
That's and no, it's gonna take a lot longer than I thought it would. Don't have the information saved off the top of my head. Didn't. Uh, Fudge. I have to remember to add that to my sources, my page. If you talk about revolutions, one Russian revolution, it's more of I think it's a narration of a journal I like listening to. I think let me double check. What was it called? I think it's Voices of the Past. Dmitry, what was his name? Uh,
Oh,
he lived during the Russian Revolution. Gives a pretty good description of what actually happened.
mm.
Love their channel. They do a whole bunch of good journals from people who lived in those time periods.
Yeah.
I love it specifically when they have people who were fighting each other and journals from each side and looking at the contrasting perspectives. Dmitry Sorokin, I believe, Sorokin. His diary is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Listen to.
It may be France because they've had a lot of wars.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I was trying to say. I think they've had a lot. They've been in a lot more wars than most countries.
Spain apparently
Actually,
tops them. Spain tops
what?
them though, but that's to
Let
be
me.
expected. Spain has
Let me.
gone to war with everybody.
Oh, where's uh, 1500. I don't know. There's a Wikipedia page I saw a while back when I was doing research for the mods.
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's Wikipedia list of wars between 1500 and 1799. Um, just look at the European wars. Like every other year, there's a war, and
Yeah.
there's different wars going on in Europe simultaneously. So like 1503 and just 1500 of a different war, and like there's just constant. When,
Yeah.
one of the reasons I'm pretty sure Europe advanced so fast in military technology, you're just constantly at war. You have to advance it. That's like the priority.
Well,
Like every single year, I think, except 7 years in one of the centuries. I don't remember which century. Europe was at war.
yeah.
I mean, they're just constantly like the fact that you've had like 50 years or like just a short time of peace recently with Europe is just astounding. Because they've been
Well,
constantly
would
at war
would
for.
you call the state of Europe peace?
I call the past, not currently, but past 30 plus years peaceful relatively to European standards. Yes.
Relatively. Let's say
Yes,
that.
relatively to
Relative
European standards.
for European. Yeah.
uh
Uh,
like Second Carib War. I mean, like, gosh darn it. British in particular, like they're doing wars overseas at the same time they're doing wars at home. Same thing with a lot of these other powers. So you can have like 3 or 4 wars all happening in the same year, like going multiple years at different dates. It's just obscene the amount of
that
wars.
reminds me, like Britain teaches, I've heard some people say, it's like how they have to teach, that they were essentially the villains of history, you know, and how they go about teaching it because they were the villain in a lot of things when you go early on, and it's weird how they teach history about that.
Yeah, I think the British did a lot of bad things.
Of course they
Like
did.
they're well, they created the first concentration camp. The
Yeah.
word concentration camp was created. I think it was the Boer Wars. Shortly before World War I, I believe.
Mm.
In South Africa. That's where the word was
Oh yeah.
originally created. It was created to describe what the British did. They were fighting a guerrilla campaign, and so they concentrated all the people in these areas and tried to make it harder for people to move around so they could stop the guerrillas from being so mobile. Um, but that's where the term was created. But there's a lot of other things where they get a bad rep where it's not 100% just their fault or was like,
Well, that's with everything, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Nothing's everything falls into gray area.
yeah. Like the British did the Atlantic slave trade, but they also banned the slave trade and were the first ones to enforce it for other countries as well that were still doing it. So like they did the
Yeah.
bad thing, but they also like it's all gray just in the end.
Yeah,
Eh,
it is. And it's not like they invented slavery.
no. That goes all the way back 3,000 plus years.
Well,
Um
I think it goes back. It's funny to think
actually
about. Do,
actually
do, do you know that sharks are older than trees? Did you know that?
depends on what type of tree you're talking
No,
about.
no, no, no. The first actual tree was only recorded 350 million years ago, and sharks are 400 million years old.
What do you mean when you're talking about sharks? That's what okay,
Actual
when
no,
you
no, it's actual sharks. And they I think they found the oldest one currently living is only 400 years old, and it's off the coast of either, I think, Greenland. It may have been Iceland, but one of the
okay,
two. Yeah.
I'll look into that a little bit later.
It's a very interesting fact, and then you think about human beings have only been around 4 to 7 million years. Like we don't even hit decades, and then modern humans only 300,000 years. And it's weird to think.
Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, I could pull up my anthropology notes. Actually, I just finished an anthropology class on humans and evolution, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So I have the specific dates still in note form somewhere on my computer.
Yeah, but isn't that weird to
Um,
think about how young we are compared to everything else on this planet?
yeah.
We're really young. And apparently it still saddens me that a large percent of people believe humans and dinosaurs existed at the same time.
Mm. Oh, what was it? I think there's a saying. I don't know where it was from. I think it's 100 years for the U.S. is a long time. 100 miles for the Britain is a long distance, or something like that. Where like no, maybe it was 1,000 miles for the U.S. isn't a long distance, or like 1,000 years for the British isn't. I don't remember, something along those lines. Um, we're basically a baby country, and they're a lot older. Um, but like a long distance isn't a big because the territory is so big.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, think about California in general. We have almost every type of climate in our singular state.
Mhm.
I mean, we have deserts, forests, beaches, mountains, and mean, what else would we be missing?
Uh, I think we're technically classified as a chaparral environment, but I'd have to double check. It's been a while.
I don't know. We have a lot, but like you can go snowing and not snow. You know what I mean. You can go,
Yeah, I got it. There's a
yeah,
lot of different types of weather and other stuff around.
yeah, and you don't even have to leave the state. It's very weird,
Hmm.
you know. But of course, everyone else in the world just thinks it exists as LA, and that's it.
Hmm. Where was it?
Are we? We're the largest county, at least in California, aren't we?
I do not know.
I think we are, because we're from what, downtown to Malibu is still considered LA County,
Mm.
which is insane.
Well, I had a thought and it's completely skipped my mind. Uh,
It
oh,
happens. I get it.
cycle back to a previous subject. Um,
Yeah.
Something I wanted to mention before. I incorporated into one of the mods I most recently worked on. It's the Age of the Norse mechanic. The word slave comes from the word Slav. And the reason for that is the Vikings enslaved so many Slavs that the word became a slogan for basically evolved into the word slave. That's where we get the word from it. Um, but most people don't realize that. So I actually added in the Age of the Norse mechanic. I named it the Slav mechanic. And effectively, you can the Viking players can transfer their villagers or villagers they capture to the Islamic powers in the Mediterranean, the North Africa, in exchange for gold. Kind of like a trading system, but a little bit different, and you get paid a little bit more. It'd be good for late game, especially since late game you have access to gold, but not as much food and other stuff, or villagers, and it makes it a little bit easier for that.
Did you tell me that before?
I'm not sure.
I
Uh,
know I've heard it before from you, but I can't remember when.
yeah. Actually, I'm gonna give a little preview. If anyone actually wants to take a look. So in the Age of Norse mod I'm working on, um, it takes place. I think it's 1031, 1033 AD. And at this point, it's like the end of the Viking Age or towards the end of it. And at this point, I think it's Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and England are all one country, and they're united under the North Sea Empire. And what was it? Oh yeah, and I think in less than a century, there's supposed to be the Crusades. during that time period. So the Roman player or the Eastern Roman player or the Byzantines at that point actually start off the Crusades, which most people do not know. They effectively lost at the Battle of Manzikert. I don't remember which caliphate at the time was invading them. I think it was the Turks. But they lost a major battle, and they needed reinforcements. So they asked for mercenaries from Western Europe. But the Eastern Romans were not on good terms with the European monarchs. So they asked the Pope to intercede on their behalf and ask for basically be an intermediary to help them out and get some mercenaries because no one was willing to give them any. And so the Pope, instead of giving them a few elite mercenaries, which is what they expected, he called a crusade, which effectively everyone showed up, peasants, everyone. It wasn't just a few elite mercenaries which is what the Romans expected. So the Romans didn't have to. We're expecting to supply a few elite mercenaries, which don't take a lot of resources. But when you have thousands of people showing up, it drains your supplies and how much you're able to feed and do all that stuff for all these people. So in the long run, it actually weakened the Romans. And so in the mod, I gave a mechanic. So when at a certain point, I have a system for calculating time. About 100 years later, the Battle of Manzikert mechanic will apply. And so what happens is if I think it's the Turkish, or in this case, I think it's the Fatimid Caliphate, since I had to combine factions again, moves their troops into Byzantine territory in that general area, and the Romans don't have a lot of military units in that area. A huge amount of territory will be transferred to the I think it's the Fatimids, and they will trigger the Battle of Manzikert. And what happens is another faction of the Papal States will be able to select the Roman Colosseum to trigger the Crusades. Now, how the Crusades work is when the Pope calls a crusade, any of the European factions that allied with the Pope and the Pope is allied with them, and are enemy to the Fatimids, will gain Crusader Knights, a constant stream of Crusader Knights that will respawn, kind of like the tanks or planes in this Great War scenario. And if any of those Crusader Knights make it all the way down to Jerusalem, it will then take over that territory, and territory will exchange hands, and the Europeans will have the Crusader states set up and take certain areas. The Romans will regain some of their territory back. And that's the first crusade. I kind of skip over the intermediary crusades in terms of stuff in the mod because I already did so much it would crash the game at that point if I added any more. But effectively, I did not put this in the mod description. I did add the Fourth Crusade, and most people do not know the Fourth Crusade, but they think it's bad and they know general the gist of it, which is it effectively ended Roman power. And in this game, the Romans are the most powerful faction in terms of their units and what they have available. And if the Roman player knows the Fourth Crusade is going to happen, they're probably not going to allow the Papal States to trigger the Call a Crusade mechanic because it'll hurt them in the long run. So if you're listening to this, you'll get a preview and actually get a little bit of advantage since I put nowhere. I didn't write this at all in the game. I wanted to be a surprise for the Roman player. So what happens is the Fourth Crusade is what happened historically was the Venetians had to deal with the Romans, and the Romans couldn't pay the Venetians. And so the Venetians were mad over this, and so they redirected the Fourth Crusade because they were on the Crusaders were on the Venetian ships, redirected them all the way to Constantinople. And instead of attacking their intended target, they attacked the Roman capital. And that effectively ended Roman power and allowed Islam to advance all the way through Anatolia, and then you get the Ottomans later on. So you get the Latin Empire temporarily. So I think it's the Holy Roman Empire, since they have the control of Venice in that mod, take control of the capital in the area for the Latin Empire. Rome loses a lot of territory in other areas. They gain the territories, I think, in Nicaea for the Empire of Nicaea. And I think there's the Empire of Trebizond. Those areas, they keep some of those historical areas that splintered off. And then if the Romans retake Constantinople like they did historically, they'll be renamed from the Empire of Nicaea back to the Romans. And they will get a few other bonuses. But they still lose most of their territory after that. And then I believe the Fatimids, if they finally take over Constantinople afterwards, after that mechanic's played, then they can be renamed the Ottomans by having their troops go in there. And when they become the Ottomans, they get an infinite supply of Janissaries, like the tanks. Except there are a lot. They've been buffed significantly, and they get a very lot more than other factions normally get. To show how they kind of expand very, very fast in Europe. So I think every civilization in that mod has more than one special mechanic specific to that civilization. Most of my mods, there's only special mechanics for certain civilizations or some of them. I think that mod has at least 2 special mechanics for every single civilization. Um, at least I think in the Great War mod, it's finally winding down. It's just very, very hard. It's a war of attrition, so it takes a long time to push. This is one of the longer mods I created in terms of how long it goes. If you see that little wagon thing down there, towards the left of the screen, that is a Hussite wagon, which is the equivalent of a tank in this game. I've changed the stats and a few other things to make it more equivalent for the modern era. Let's see. I think the okay. Let's see. I think the king and queen are about to object for Austria-Hungary. They're going to die soon. Let's see. Wonder if it's frozen for you as well as for me. Have you checked the recording beforehand?
Me?
I know it froze for me for a little bit.
No, mine's still going.
Okay. Just my recording then. Yay, graphics drivers. Oh.
It may have been the actual video itself. I'm not sure, but
Oh, that'll be great. Yeah.
it's fine. Trust me, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, I'm already missing a couple frames. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Most people don't notice, you know? It's why all animation is like fourth frame, you know? Every 4 frames, there's another piece of animation.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings can't tell the difference. But yeah, we got about. I'm closing, and we just passed. No, we're about to pass the 50-minute mark. We have a little bit to go.
Okay.
If you don't know, we're recording over this after the fact, which
Yeah.
would be obvious to anyone.
Yeah. I'm not really good at YouTube or whatever, so I'm just like, I don't need a whole bunch of stuff. You can take the credit for whatever. I'm not gonna set up my own anytime soon.
It's a pain.
Oh,
I will say, even to
we just don't
do
have, there's
what?
not enough time in the day for me to do everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, even doing this small stuff took us a while. It's hard to find time, just when the two of us can do stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to. When I was first starting out for animation and all that stuff, I thought I wanted to be the person who could do everything by myself.
No,
And and the thing is, I can effectively do it now. And I also now understand why people don't do it now.
yeah,
It's because you physically don't have the time to do it all.
no, of course not.
So like I don't know how many character models I'm working on and other projects, and I have like 35 plus projects, and I just don't have enough time to do them nearly anything that I want to do.
It's also why they used to have keyframe animators, you know, when it was all hand drawn. So they'd essentially have the guy who drew the recognizable face and everything, and the in between were done by a smaller team of people.
One good thing about animation is now the keyframes, like they'll just automatically go between the two keyframes, at least for 3D
Blender.
animation. Yeah, 3D animation, they'll just fill in the stuff in between, which is nice.
Yeah, Blender's great with that. That was actually the first Blender animation I made was a falling portal cube. And I literally just had to set 4 points, and Blender filled in the rest for me, and I just had to edit it slightly,
Yeah.
which
I
is
still need to get. I still need to have to learn how Blender works. I'm so far behind on that.
it's
I just
mainly
switched over recently, and it's taking a while to figure out all the features.
the main thing, which is how fast you go, is just knowing the key shortcuts. That's it. That
Hmm.
that that that's pretty much determines how fast you're going. The rest it's pretty self-explanatory after a while. And there are tons of videos on it.
Oh, yeah, it's not. I'm not actually doing the work. The issue is just finding the time to do it.
Yeah.
Ugh. If there was more hours in the day, if only. Um,
Mm.
oh, I'm wondering if it does freeze in the video if this section is just I think my computer fell asleep at one point. I'm wondering if this section was the part where it fell asleep. Uh, Good chance it was.
Ah,
If it does freeze for you as well and for everyone else.
yeah. Frozen.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, Uh it playing it through the recording software, so there's nothing that can, cause problems with it.
Yeah. Ideally, if I was doing this, I just open the replay and I'd record it all the way through as it was going. Um, no- for this, I recorded the video ahead of time after I had
Yeah.
made the replay on separate OBS, and then we're doing audio on top of that afterwards. Realistically, it probably would have been easier just to do it all in once. Um,
Well, I mean, look at it this way. This way how we're doing it, um we don't have the problem of it being in 30 frames per second for some reason.
mhm.
I don't know why yours recorded in 30 frames per second though. I've no idea why. Do you know?
No idea. Uh, there's so many softwares I need to learn, and I haven't learned the technical ins and outs of them yet.
Well,
Um,
that's the thing. As far as I know, OBS is default 60 frames per second. So I don't know
so,
what happened.
so you're saying I messed up in a special way.
Yeah,
Um,
it's more curiosity than anything of like how I don't physically know how to change how it records an FPS. I have no idea how to do that.
I think it was one of my family members took an electrical engineering class, and the assignment was to make it so the light would turn on when it was night and off when it was day.
Yeah.
And somehow they managed to do it backwards, so it was on when it was day and off when it was night. And the electrical teacher had no idea how they managed to do it. It was just like
Right?
it was like that's a mess up, but it's a special type of mess up.
Yeah. But it's interesting when those special things happen where you're just like, hmm. But it's also the thing of like, you know, I don't know how or why it's working, but it is working.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
important.
what was it? I was working, I think, on a different mod recently. I've just started a new project.
Uh,
Um, it's I think it includes Africa, Asia, and Europe. I want to do like I think it's 1500s ish. Has the Ottomans, the Mughals, the Safavids, China, and I'm deciding what I don't have enough factions for Europe to do individual European countries. So I'm thinking of combining all of Europe into one country, even though I know that's completely unrealistic. Um, and I think the Mongols, I think it's Northern Yuan. Um, uh, One of the issues with a lot of mod ideas is I want at least one new special mechanic for each mod.
yeah, you said that.
I haven't quite come up with one for Napoleon yet, or the Napoleonic Wars. Um, Still thinking on that one, and I still don't really want to get around to the Mongol invasions
Make
one. Or
everybody short.
uh,
Napoleon wasn't even that short.
no, he wasn't. He was actually above average height for the time. But
He
no,
was.
well,
He was
I think
what,
it's
like 5'4"?
well, I don't remember off the top of my head. The thing is, most people don't realize this. So at this point in time, France still used feet, but they aren't British feet. Um, so when people say they think he was a certain foot tall, they're thinking of British height, which is feet, which is not the same as French feet. They were different heights. So French feet were bigger than British. So when you say like in English units that he's this amount of feet tall, that's kind of correct, but also kind of isn't because French feet were bigger than British feet, and we're
Oh
talking
no.
British.
He was 5'6".
Yeah, yeah, he was quite a bit taller than what
Wow.
most people.
Do you
Yeah,
know how tall George Washington was supposed to be?
not off the top of my head.
He was 6'2".
Yeah.
Is
So
that
around he was around the height of Alexander the Great then. I think he
uh,
was 6'4" or roughly.
Beethoven was 5'4"?
Yeah.
Weird.
Um, at least historically, the one ways you could tell if you were the aristocracy or a little bit more wealthy, or if you were in a very prosperous area of the world, is your height. The reason most people are short historically is because they didn't have the good nutrition.
Yeah.
So if they didn't have good nutrition, they would grow only to a certain point because they couldn't. The bodies didn't have enough nutrition to grow any taller. So I think historically, at least the past 100 years, Americans used to be considered a little bit taller than the average population of the world. That's because the U.S. had access to better food and nutrition. But over the course of the past few decades, I think it's the Netherlands in particular, their population shot up significantly because they got access to good nutrition. I think genetically, they're one of the tallest populations on the planet.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's also, apparently did you know our food portion is like twice as much as anywhere else in the world?
Not my food portion.
No, like
Can't afford food.
like literally our food portions are apparently bigger than most places in the rest of the world.
I wouldn't know. Most of the food I make is homemade. Um,
Mm.
I do cooking and other stuff. Um,
Strange to
uh,
think about.
there's something chemical or something in a lot of processed food that I react to. Like my family has a lot of issues with a lot of food here.
Uh-huh.
But like same food in Europe is fine because they don't have the whatever's in the food is just not there. So like if we're my family has issues with dairy, but if we go to Europe, no issues with dairy because I don't know what's different with the milk, but there has to be some chemical or something that's not used there.
No, with milk it's a huge thing. It's also like
Well,
how
not
it's
it's not just
pasteurized and stuff like that.
well,
It can
yeah.
affect
Well, I mean,
people.
it's not just milk. It's like wine, other stuff, foods we normally couldn't eat or like digest here. We can easily have there, no issues. Um,
It all depends, and as we say, as much as we like to state as medicine as, you know, extreme hard facts, truth of the matter is you have to treat everything case by case because even though all human population is about 1% difference in DNA, that still changes how we react to things.
yeah, and I'm like, just because it's that small doesn't mean anything. Like, what was it? Like I think chimpanzees have very close DNA percentage related to us, but I mean
Yeah.
that small percentage makes a huge difference. I think what was it? My one of my teachers in anthropology, or maybe it was one of the s- classmates, posted something about how I think it was banana or something. I don't remember what vegetable or fruit has very close DNA compared to humans. And I think it was joking that we're that fruit or vegetable. I don't remember which one it was. But like everyone's different.
Yeah.
I think it's the malaria vaccine. My uncle's in the Marines. Um, he had issues with it. Most people do not have issues with that vaccine. But the malaria vaccine, he broke out with these big splotches because he reacted differently than most people. everything's is a unique individual case by case basis.
Yeah.
There's a general, it can work for a general population for the majority of people, but there's always going to be exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that every day we go out, we're slowly being mutated by the sun.
Up and let's see. It looks like the match is about the end.
Yeah, we have about a minute 50 left.
If you notice, if you look at the Ottoman score down in the right corner, it will change to the Turkish Republic in terms of names when it's defeated. At least I believe that's correct. Actually, I should rename the German Empire the Weimar Republic afterwards.
Oh, you haven't told me what you wanted me to name this.
Age of Empires 2 Great War mod, something like that.
Okay, I'm gonna put like IOM3D's.
You don't even need to add that. I'm like,
No, but I still do.
most of these mods I just make for fun. There's stuff I want to play with mechanics I want to enjoy watching or have fun with.
I know, but I think you should get credit for making this. You put a lot of time in it.
Yeah, but it's not as much time as you think.
No, it's enough. It's enough that your name should at least be on it.
Yeah. If you when you put the link, just make sure to put the link to the
Yeah,
mod
I
page
will.
for the scenario because I used someone else's base map. I've edited the base map significantly since from the original, but I still want to credit them with the original base map.
Send me all the links you want to do, and I'll do that.
Okay.
All right. Anything else you want to say in the 20 seconds we got left?
I hope you guys get a chance to play this and like have some fun. Like send me the recording through my Discord if you. I love to see the recordings. Just it's more fun for me to watch than to play because I'm not good at playing this game at all. So if you have the skill and you want to play it, please send me the recordings. I will love to watch it.
All right.
Um,
See you again.